If you could have anything you wanted, whenever you wanted, would you be happy? You might think the answer is yes, but Jack Whitaker would disagree with you. Jack bought a lottery ticket on Christmas Eve, and the next day, after almost losing the ticket on his way home, he found out that he had won. What most of us would consider a Christmas miracle slowly turned into his worst nightmare. At the time, it was the biggest lottery jackpot ever won by a single ticket in American history, equaling a total of $314.9 million. Jack donated a lot of his money to local churches and people in need, but he also wanted to spoil his granddaughter, Brandy Bragg. He bought her 4 cars, gave her around $2,000 per week, and generally got her anything she wanted. But sadly, she started hanging out with the wrong crowds and died tragically young at the age of 17. Jack then went on to say that winning the lottery was the worst thing that ever happened to him. And Jack isn't the only one who has said that winning the lotto didn't bring happiness. So then the question is it possible that money can make you happy? And researchers have found 2 things you can buy that can make you happy. And there's a third one that's a bit controversial, and I'll talk about all 3 in this video. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Erika Kullberg. I'm a lawyer and personal finance YouTuber, and most recently a TikToker too. So how can money buy happiness? You might have heard of the Princeton University study that says that money does increase happiness, but the correlation stops at $75,000 per year. Once people started earning more than that, then the amount of happiness they experienced didn't change or only changed marginally. And there are various other studies that have similar conclusions as well, but the main finding is usually that between $75,000 and $105,000 per year, depending on where in the world you live, is the sweet spot for the income level that will bring you happiness and overall life satisfaction. But having these numbers in your head only promotes the idea that you need more money to be happy, and it falls short of explaining how you can actually increase happiness without pursuing money. Because if you constantly try to pursue money, you might push away important happiness-inducing activities like spending time with your family and hanging out with your friends, something that we'll agree is important in life. A recent study by researchers from Harvard and several other universities, published in Advances in Experimental Social Psychology, outlined 2 things you need to invest your money in to increase happiness. The first thing is prosocial spending. This means spending money on other people. In the study, the researchers first mentioned a small experiment they conducted with 2 groups. They randomly gave people in the study either a $5 or a $20 bill. Group 1 had to spend it on themselves, and Group 2 was told to spend it on someone else. After the groups had spent their money, the researchers assessed their happiness. They found that participants who had been assigned to spend the money on others reported feeling significantly happier that day compared to participants assigned to spend the money on themselves. They then conducted a few other studies, but the results remained consistent. People who spend their money on others generally feel happier than those who spend their money on themselves. Much like in the lottery story, Jack presumably felt very happy spending money on his granddaughter. But as his granddaughter only spent the money on herself, this arguably affected her happiness. This kind of makes a prosocial paradox, as everyone who gets money should spend it on others. But the main takeaway here is really that we derive more happiness from spending on others than from spending on ourselves. The next thing they mentioned is buying time. In the report, they mentioned another study they conducted involving roughly 4,000 participants from all walks of life, asking them this question: in a typical month, do you spend any money to outsource tasks, for example, household chores, shopping, to others that you dislike spending time doing? They found that only 28% of people said yes. As expected, this was much higher in wealthier individuals, notably the millionaires. They then asked the participants to rate their life satisfaction. They found that the people who answered yes were generally happier than the people who said no. This was also largely unchanged even once they looked at key demographic variables, including household income, age, gender, number of hours worked per week, marital status, and the number of children living at home. The researchers then looked at various other factors, but their overall conclusion is that time-saving purchases increase happiness. You're not only saving time, but in many cases, you're also avoiding having to do things you dislike. If you hate cleaning, then having someone help you around the house has 2 benefits. 1, it saves you time, and 2, it saves you from having to do something you dislike. You're effectively buying this ability to opt out from something you dislike. Of course, making time-saving purchases is one way to exchange money for time. Another thing you could do is simply work fewer hours or rent a place that's closer to work to reduce your daily commute time. One of the reasons they believe swapping money for time increases happiness is because you're able to increase the time you spend socializing. We all know the expression, living for the weekend. We battle through the week longing for those 2 sweet days off where we socialize with friends, spend time with our family, or just get some well-needed me time. But if you have to keep working, finishing chores at home or other tasks, then that time we long for is vastly reduced. This is one of the reasons why the researchers hypothesized that prioritizing time over money increases happiness. Before we get to the controversial one, I wanted to take a moment to thank today's sponsor. Upstart is the fast and easy way to pay off your debt with a personal loan, all online. Whether it's paying off credit cards, consolidating high-interest debt, or funding personal expenses, over 500,000 people have used Upstart to get one fixed monthly payment. Upstart knows you're more than just your credit score and is expanding access to affordable credit. Unlike other lenders, Upstart considers your income and current employment to find you a smarter rate for your loan. With a 5-minute online rate check, you can see your rate up front for loans between $1,000 to $50,000. You can receive funds as fast as 1 business day after accepting your loan. Find out how Upstart can lower your monthly payments today when you go to upstart.com/Erika. That's upstart.com/Erika. Don't forget to use my URL to let them know that we sent you. Now back to the video. So as promised, they also outlined another thing you can buy to buy happiness, but mentioned at the end that this is subjective to your income and background. I'm going to say it here as I'm a firm believer in this one. It's buying experience. They state that on average, people who purchase experiences such as traveling, having hobbies, going to the movies, eating out, were typically happier than those who mostly bought material possessions. They also outlined that the time spent waiting for an experience is mostly positive, like when you're planning an upcoming vacation. Whereas when you wait for material possessions to arrive, this experience often increases frustration in people, like when your Amazon package is delayed. And when people purchase a material possession, the feeling of happiness is short-lived, but an experience lasts longer. It's also harder to make social comparisons to your experiences. If you're still using the iPhone 7 and your best friend has the iPhone 12, it's easy to be a little envious of them. Their model is objectively better, but this negative social comparison is a lot harder when discussing experiences. It's harder to assess if a friend's trip to London was better than your trip to London. These experiences also have positive effects on our lives, and for some people, they help to shape their personalities. But like I alluded to, this one's a bit controversial in that the study says that this correlation is slightly limited. The initial research for this particular section was only conducted primarily among relatively homogeneous samples, particularly college students at elite universities. A later study looking at less well-off people didn't find the same results. Their happiness ratio remained the same whether they were buying experiences or buying material possessions. So that's just something to keep in mind. Now that you know what to spend your money on, the next step is learning how to save your money wisely so that you can then use it to buy back time, buy experiences, and buy for others. To find the answer for that, you'll want to click the link right here.